Welcome to Scaling Smart, the Quickly Hire podcast, where we explore how founders are building exceptional teams and scaling their businesses. I'm your host, Brad Morrison. In each episode, we dive into the journeys, challenges, and strategic decisions that shape growing companies. These conversations will give you practical insights on when and how to leverage fractional talent to accelerate your growth. Hey everyone, I am joined today by Chris Lema, CEO of Motivations.ai. Hey Chris, thanks for joining us today.
It's good to be here.
Always good to talk to my friend Chris. We've worked together in the past. Haven't caught up in a while, but it's fun to have you on. I know you've got great advice for other founders that are looking to build their company. Tell us a little about Motivations.ai. What do you do?
Yeah. So there is some motivational science, intellectual property that's been around for 60, 65 years. And about 3 years ago, I joined a company named different, doing different things. But the chairman of that board wondered out loud as we were talking, if he gave me money, right, which is not the normal way these things happen, but if he gave me money, was there a way that I would invest it? He realized I had a background in buying companies, and he's like, hey, you bought 40 companies. If I gave you 10 million to go work with, what would you buy now? And I said, oh, that's easy. I had known about this motivational science stuff for about 20 years and had looked up what it would cost to buy them. And I'm like, yeah, I would buy these companies. So originally, the underlying science was sitting with one company. Over the course of many years, it had splintered into multiple companies, many of the same players involved, but just multiple different entities. And Motivations AI came up out of me buying all 5 companies, putting them together, naming them Motivations AI. And I thought I was just buying it for our parent company and just saying, I'll do the work and here you go. And then he was like, do you want to run it? And I was like, yeah, the same investment hypothesis that I had to make the purchase is the one I would use to build it and run it. And so that's what I did about 2.5 years ago. We spun it up. And of course, anytime you're buying companies, what I cared most about was the intellectual property because we can build product against that. And we've done that. But you also have some different people and you got to figure out which ones are coming and which ones are you not keeping and all the stuff that's related to acquisitions you do at the very beginning of this whole thing because it's different than when you're founding from zero, right? When you're founding, you're like, oh, I get all the excitement of bringing on a team and building a new product from scratch and doing whatever. When you're doing an acquisition to launch something new, you're like, what are all the assets I have, but also what are the liabilities and what do I have to go through and adjust? So that was the beginning of the work. But we pulled together the IP, we launched product and assembled a team, and we've been doing that ever since.
Did you already have like a vision for what you wanted it to be in pulling it? Because it's different than just acquiring a company, letting the management team run, and you provide value where you can. You had a more ambitious vision for what this new product could be.
Absolutely. So a lot of times what happens in the assessment game, our core product is called Motivation Code. You can find it at motivationcode.com. And it is for short, we call it M-Code. The M-Code assessment is an assessment. And there's a lot of really great, and there's several not so great assessments out there. You think about them as personality quizzes. You take the quiz and then it tells you, here's who you are. And most of the time in that space, 90% of the time, off the top of my head, that's not a statistical number, but just 9 out of 10 that I can think of right now, the organization that creates the survey spends so much time and energy making sure the survey is intelligent, the assessment is accurate, that there's validity to the model. They get so focused on the science of the assessment. Now, there's a bunch of other assessments that have no science at all, but they get so focused on the science of the assessment that they forget about the application of the assessment. And so the mantra that I had for the team from the beginning to now is it's all about applied science, not science, right? It's about how do you make this valuable and useful after the fact? Whether we're talking about books or we're talking about applications and software, we're talking about everything else. It's about how you put it to work. We've both taken personality assessments. Most of the time, it asks you these hypothetical questions, right? On a Friday night, would you like to do A or B? They're extreme answers like sit at home because you have no friends and read a book, or land yourself in jail because you went out drinking and drove over someone on the way home, and you're like, whoa, those are really extreme. And so it never perfectly aligns with who you are, but because they're theoretical, you don't feel too bad about them. But then it ends and it's a parlor trick. It's a magic trick. Like, Chris, you have a goatee on your face. And you're like, how did they figure that out? You're shocked and you're like, this is amazing. But then a week later, you're like, but I already knew I had a goatee on my face. Like, what is the point of the magic trick if it doesn't do anything going further? So our point was, I don't want it to be a cool moment and then nothing. I want it to be like, wow, that's insightful. And then, oh my gosh, I can use this and put this to work in my daily life, my family life, my work life. How do we do that? And that meant not just let's build a software for the assessment. It meant, well, what software do you build after that? So we went to build a Job Fit and Pulse. These are products that one is focused on how you do the hiring. One is focused on how you do employee management and engagement after the fact. It's all about how do you leverage this motivation science going forward. So yeah, it was a bigger agenda. And the real trick, right, when you assemble a team is you can't paint the vision of 1,000 miles away or people get distracted. You have to paint, okay, what's the next hill we climb? Even though you're going to climb that hill to be able to get to the next hill, to be able to get to the mountain, to be able to get to the mountaintop. And so you're doing this dance of, I need to give you enough, but not so much that you go sideways.
And even reading where things are at that moment, right? It's one thing to say, this is where the vision is down the road. Let's break it up into pieces. But along that path, there's twists and turns and things that you don't expect. And the next step may not be the next step that you thought it was going to be.
Yeah. My favorite philosopher, modern philosopher, Mike Tyson, said, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. And you're like, yeah, that's about it.
That's right. So Chris, from a product standpoint, if someone's listening to this and they're a founder of a growing startup, they could use this to figure out their own motivations, right? So they could get their own M code. They could also, you have a product where you can apply it to the team. You can figure out who you should be hiring, or is this a good fit for your business? Tell us a little bit about the different product offerings.
Yeah, I think it's always about the problem, right? What's the problem space and is there valuable problem space there? If you think about hiring, before Quickly Hire ever existed, if you walk into an organization and you said, okay, we're going to watch how you hire someone. We're going to use a stopwatch and we're going to track how much time you spend on different things. What you would find is that most organizations, when hiring someone, spend the majority of their time in two spaces. First, we're going to look at what are your skills. And second, we're going to look at what is your experience. Okay? Skills and experience, 95% of all the time spent is skill and experience. Because we think that's what we need, right? We need to make sure that they have the right experience, they can hit the ground running, and they have the skills needed to do this job. When you look at voluntary attrition, that's not me firing you. That's you quitting on me, right? Voluntary attrition, when people leave, which right now in the US is over 20%, more than 1 in 5. The last 5 people you hired, one's getting ready to quit on you. It's 22% in the US. When you look at voluntary attrition, it is never skills or experience. They never say, I just realized I didn't have the right experience for the job, and so this wasn't a good fit for me, or I just realized that they needed other skills and this wasn't a good fit for me. That's never the case. What do they say? Culture and boss. Culture and boss. That is the problem. So we're sitting here over-architected, over-optimized for skills and experience, and the people walking out the back door, which costs us a heck of a lot of money, they're walking out for a completely different reason that we spent zero time checking. So Job Fit as a product has both the manager and every prospect take the M code assessment. We have a light version that costs $19. It's the cheap, like when you look at what's the cost of replacing one of your top 5 people that walked out the back door, it's crazy amounts of money, right? We've seen, depending on the industry and the organization, anywhere from $50,000 to $300,000 of replacement costs when someone of quality walks out the back door. And here we are going, it's $19. That's not a lot of money. So you have the prospect and let's say your top 10 candidates, you have them all take the M code. We then put that into Job Fit. It will immediately look at both the hiring manager and the prospects how they might fit together, how those two fit together in relation to the job description itself, right? So how does this kind of manager with this kind of job work and these kind of people? And then it ranks those people, right? Like it ranks them based on, hey, how fulfilling this job would be, how well aligned they are from a motivational map perspective. And it asks them, it gives to the hiring manager questions to ask each of the candidates. Like you may want to poke in here, you may want to look in there. That's the report. We had the CEO of a medical company in the regulatory compliance space related somewhat to insurance. He has an $85 million a year job, right? He runs an $85 million a year company. And he has kept parts of his leadership team, and he has recently, over the course of months, fired many others that didn't fit. And they couldn't figure out what was the common factor. Looking at age, looking at years of experience, looking at gender. There were 5 different factors they really couldn't figure it out. But we had done the M code with all of them. And so I asked the coach or the consultant that was working with them, I said, have you looked at their motivational dimensions? And he comes back, he's like, oh my God, everyone they kept was a driver and everyone that they cut was not. And so he takes that data back to the CEO and says, here's how you're wired, but also here's who you're hiring. And he goes, yeah, but how are we going to figure that out? He goes, we can give them a $19 test before we decide to hire them. Now, job fit itself has its own expense, right? So it's not just $19. There's another $500 for this and that. But the point is, you're paying peanuts to put motivation into the mix so that you can look at culture and boss, manager alignment, job fit, all that kind of stuff with motivational markups. And that's a huge deal. And we do another SaaS that is related to once you have those employees, how do you shape assignments? How do you communicate? All that. That's called Pulse. So we're trying to solve the problems that, frankly, most times just get ignored, right? Because we tend to think of them as that's personality and that's always going to be changing depending on the people, and that's soft skill and communication. And those are just hard to do. And we're like, there is science. You can put science against it and you can learn how to shape a message more effectively for this kind of person. If a taxonomy of 8 dimensions of motivation, if you know which one they are, you can shape your language and they will hear it far differently. And if you start shaping assignments and work, they will persevere in the midst of challenges 2.7 times more than any of the rest of the people, simply because you've aligned their intrinsic motivation with the job they're doing.
So the results of something like this, Chris, like maybe using you as an example, what is that M code? What is it going to show? What is a score, or what are the kind of motivations that it identifies?
So we have a taxonomy of 32 motivations. And one of the main things we give you out in that M code report is the stack rank of the 32. So everybody is getting measured on the same 32, but we're going to show me that one of the motivations is comprehend and express. And you know this about me. I love to take massive amounts of content and data and everything and distill it into a nice, clean little framework that someone else can understand, right? And so that's comprehend and express. That's my number one motivation. It's not the thing that makes me wake up in the morning and do everything I do. It's the vehicle I use when I'm doing everything else I do. But it's such a big part of how I do what I do that it's my number one. Whereas mastery and excel are my 2 and 3s, which is, yes, I want the gold prize. I want to win. I want to be first. And I use Comprehend and Express to get to first. It shows me the stack of 32 and it shows me these are my top 5 and these are my top 10. So that's one part of it. The other is, as I mentioned, there are 8 different dimensions of motivation. And it gives me the rank of those 8. And it shows that, hey, I'm an achiever more than anything else. And then I'm an orchestrator and visionary and driver. And so it puts those in order. Again, it helps me to think through, how do I adjust the work I'm doing so that I can tap into my intrinsic motivation? So it definitely helps with that. But it also, when my employees take it, it helps me know, oh, this person is an achiever, this person's a driver, this person's an orchestrator. I have a guy on my staff named Steve. He's an orchestrator. There is no chance in heck that Steve wants me to tell him exactly what to do. He lives for me throwing him into a messy area and going, we need this cleaned up. And then he's like, I am in my happy spots. So I'll get Slack messages at midnight. I would not get Slack messages from someone else at midnight because they would be like, it's 5 o'clock, I hit my time. But for him, he's like, I'm still going. I love this. Whereas my friend Jennifer Bourne, who's on our team, and if I gave her an overwhelming messy, he would just be like, are you trying to kill me? That is not her definition of fun. But as an achiever and a driver, if I gave her, hey, here are 7 things, I know it's impossible to get them all done, but they all happen to be in her sweet spot. She'll finish all 7 days before anyone else could imagine starting. She's so fast and she would just nail it. And then when she hands it off, they're all going to be works of art. They're all going to be incredible. They're going to be amazing. And you're going to go, yeah, she's a high performer. She wants to deliver. But what I also know is that when she gives it back to me, I can't just write, because the achiever wants the recognition that they did what they did, right? So I have to write, hey, let me take a look at these. And then I go look at them. And then I have to give her back feedback on, this was amazing. I can't believe you pulled this off. And I'm giving her the strokes that an achiever needs. Whereas if I don't tell Steve, hey, good job, you solved it, he doesn't care because he's like, no, the reward was giving me the mess that I got to go clean up. 2 completely different people wired differently. My job as a manager is to manage them differently.
Yeah, you're kind of lifting the hood in a way, right? Because that's an ambiguous area a lot of times. It's like, why do they react this way when I tell them they've done it once, twice, 3 times? It's like, oh, no, you actually see the wiring and why people have those motivations and react that way. That's real interesting. And when you have a new initiative, I get it on the hiring side and making assignments, and you're going to want to put Steve on something that's messy and he can make sense of it, then plug others in that can do their thing. Is there in the tool, is there any breakdown of what the initiative or task are? Or do you take it as, hey, I know what needs to be done. This is the fit. Let me figure out who to plug in where.
Yeah. So in our Pulse product, which is where we do management of people, we have a new project area and we ask 5 questions. But the 5 questions aren't describe the specific tasks that need to be done. The 5 questions are about the context of the work. Is it well-defined or is it ill-defined? An orchestrator is going to take ill-defined, an optimizer is going to take poorly defined, and they're going to be like, this is great, I love doing this. But it's going to annoy a learner who's like, what are we even doing here? So we're asking characteristics, right? Like, hey, is this an individual effort or a group effort? Is there leadership required or not? Is this going to be something that is going to be seen? Is it going to be visible? Is it one of those big projects that the CEO is going to notice, or is it not? And as we understand the context of the effort, we are dynamically adjusting the list of people that we recommend putting on the team. And it's constantly changing as you're answering questions. You can see it happen in real time. And they're going, wait, why? I thought so-and-so would be great. No, you answered this. And by the way, that's going to be a nightmare for that person. I just read this study. 1,100 nurses were surveyed. It was like 5,500 nurses were surveyed. 1,100 sent in the full responses. That's the data set they used. It's about a 25% response rate. And out of the 1,100, they were all nurses that were like on the floor, ICU, regular nursing, but they were like doing nurse work, not management or anything else. And they were looking at what moves them in terms of engagement. And what you discover is, right, most bosses think if I lighten their workload, that I will make things better for them. And they had this highly validated study, and they found that, nope, that barely moves the needle compared to feedback loops, growth opportunities, resourcing. I could give you the same amount of workload you have, but if I give you here's some additional help, or here's a resource that'll help you, or I noticed that you're doing really great, here's a couple things I would tweak, or hey, I saw you did this well, so I'm going to move you to this harder task, whatever, right? Those things have a much higher lift on employee engagement and reduction of burnout than just, let me just make your workload a little bit lighter, right? So there's a ton of research that continues to come in on how to manage well. Unfortunately, right, I meet with CEOs all the time, and you'll go, hey, have you heard this? Have you seen this? You know, right? My favorite research recently came out of something called persistence threshold. And persistence threshold is when someone's doing work and they hit a challenge, how far do they push themselves in that challenge before they stop? Threshold, where is the line where they go, too hard, I'm out? And people who are in roles that fit their intrinsic motivation, people where you shape the role and the assignments for their motivation, will outlast peers 2.7 times further in their persistence threshold. That's 2,700%. That's a massive difference. That means if you and I are working on something and I'm not aligned, I'm like, I'm done. 5 o'clock hits, I'm over. And you're like, oh, I'm going to give it 2 more days. I'm going to push through all this. I'm going to push in, even though it's hard, I'm going to keep going because I'm aligned. And you go, that leverage point doesn't cost us anything. Why wouldn't you want to understand how your employee's wired? And why wouldn't you want to use that when you're picking your employees so that you make sure that I'm assembling a team? Why wouldn't I want that? When the benefit, when they hit challenges, is these people are going to run right through the brick wall and these people are going to turn around and go home. Why wouldn't I want that?
Yeah, this really is a tool that helps build a high-performing team, optimize teams for certain projects. And again, pricing is not an obstacle, really. I would imagine you work with customers all over the place, SMBs all the way to enterprise, nonprofit,
SMBs
for-profit.
to enterprise. Yep. Nonprofit, for-profit. We just signed up a church. We have a subscription model for some things that makes it so that we're basically financing it. You pay monthly.
Yep.
But this church wanted to deploy it across all their leadership team because really great at doing the operations of the organization. It's a multi-thousand person church. And they have tons of volunteers and they have leaders, they have staff, and they're really good at keeping everything running. But every time they go spin up a new initiative, it struggles to move. And you go, okay, tell me about your people, tell me about this, tell me about that. And they don't have the data. And you're like, okay, let's deploy M-code throughout here. And then let's assemble some teams. And then let's do some team training. And let's do the whole thing. But also we can do it for a low monthly fee. So you don't have to worry about a big written check up front. So yeah, we work with churches on the one side and Eli Lilly, the global research facility, is on the other side, right? And everybody is in between.
Did you have a personal story around motivations and in previous jobs or anything that kind of led to your interest in the company to begin with?
Yeah. So in the year 2000, a buddy of mine took a handwritten version of this stuff, right? The underlying science was called SEMA and SIMA. And he took it and he came back to me. He goes, Chris, this has you written all over it, right? This is leadership stuff and it is storytelling, right? Because what you do is you write down these stories of your personal moments of success, moments of achievement, moments of fulfillment. You write these down and then a PhD, right? Psychologist would read these, right? You'd write 8 stories and he'd read these, connect the wires and present you your stacked rank. And he did it. And so he came in 2000, told me about it. And I went looking for it. And at the time, it was only selling to big corporate. So if I had worked at NASA, if I had worked at Disney, if I had worked at Harvard, I could have had access. But I didn't. So I couldn't get it. But because he told me enough about that, I started using that in most of my coaching engagements, right? One of the first questions I would ask is, hey, I want you to look back over your work and find 5 times or 4 stories of this, that, and I just want you to tell them to me. And what I would do is learn how a person was wired. In fact, when we started coaching, the first version of that, the first question, you and I were sitting at an event in Atlanta, right?
Yep.
And we're sitting at a table and I just asked him, so what made you do this? Or what was it? And you were telling me I had this and then we did this. And what was happening for me is without technology, I would suck in these stories of what made something valuable to a person. And I'd go, okay, so that means they're probably wired this way, right? This way. And so for 20 years, I've been doing this manually. And so the moment someone said, if I give you a check, I was like, yeah, let's go buy these because I can put boosters on this and we can drive this forward. What I've discovered is, and I've been coaching for 30 years now, I've been coaching CEOs and not one of them is the same. There's a lot of coaches out there that are like, I have one set program. I run everyone through the set program. And I don't do that. And the reason I don't do that is because they're not all the same. Every CEO is different and they're in a different context and they have their own wiring and they have different problems. And so you're like, okay, how do I work best? How do I throw a sweet spot pitch, right? I want to throw a pitch so that this CEO knows how to hit it out of the park. So if he likes it right down the middle, that's great. But if he wants it low and inside, if he wants it high and outside, I got to be able to throw different pitches for different people so they can look good and they can actually succeed. And so that was, for me, I was like, oh, I have done this in my own hiring. I have been hiring two different people for the same title job, having them do two totally different things. And it didn't matter because I was like, hey, I am fixing the job for the person, not jamming the person into the job. And with decades of that experience, I was like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. Let's go do this.
Tell a little about your current team right now, Chris. What does
Yeah.
your team at Motivations AI look like?
It's tiny. Most, especially if you're given money, right? Whether you've private equity or venture or just friends and family in your bootstrapping, but if you have a pocket of money, one of the things we like to do is we like to go hire. I want to hire as few people as possible. I want to starve the engine of resources. And the reason I starve it is because it creates an immediate function of prioritization. Like, what do we really need staff for? What do we not need staff for? Because once you've hired a person, they and you will figure out how to fill that person's time up, whether it's valuable or not. You know this, right?
Yep.
And so I was like, I'm not going to do that. So I have a very small team. Most of these people I've known for 5 to 10 years, at least one of them, Steve, I've known for 20 years. And I was like, I'm going to pull together 4 or 5 people. We kept one person from the entities that we bought. And we said, okay, let's bring them in. And then this piece and people I recruited. Very small team. And each person has to not only be strategic, like big picture stuff, they have to be hands-on. They got to be able to do stuff. Each person has to be able to do more than one thing, right? So there's a lot of overlap and they cross over into other spaces so that they can bring it all. And then they all have to be really comfortable with us bringing in outsourced partners. They got to be comfortable because they're going to be like, well, I want to hire my own person to do X, Y, or Z. I'm like, no. Like if I hire a web developer and tuck it in under one of our people, we're going to go find web work for them all the time. It's just like, well, of course. And I don't want that. So instead, all of our product development, I will dictate what I want, but all of the coding, or at least up until recently, almost all the coding has been externalized. Some of the time we generate code. I can do it internal or external. But writing, coding, a lot of design, ad stuff, all that, we have no staff on board for that. We literally kept the team really small. And then they just had to be comfortable working with a partner, managing a partner, right? Which is great when you know companies like Quickly Hire. There's no company like Quickly Hire. Companies in the space. When you Quickly Hire and you can say, hey, we want to write this book. We want to author this thing. We want to do this thing. Let's go to Quickly Hire and ask them for a writer. Why would I want to staff up a full-time writer only 3 months into the project or 4 months into the project? I have nothing to do. What am I going to do? I'm going to start making up new writing projects for them. And I'm like, no, let's just go to Quickly Hire and get this. Let's go to Quickly Hire. At one point, we needed some design work. Let's go get a designer. So the more you're able to build a team that's comfortable not having to own every single thing, control every single thing, and feel like that's going to say something about me. I'm like, no, it doesn't. If we don't like the writing, we'll swap out the writer. It says nothing about you. Like, you have to learn how to manage external resources. And for some people that was easy, some people that was harder. But it's a critical component when you're building a small team because I don't want payroll to keep going up and to the right. We've kept it pretty flat for 2.5 years. And it's always changing, right? You go, oh, now I need web. No, I don't need web. Now I need someone to write some extra code. No, I don't need it. Now I need someone to edit. Now I need someone to do. And the more that you're comfortable with that, the better off you are in keeping a team small.
Yeah, and the overhead of hiring full-time, that's just what we see. Our folks, they're fractional, whether it's leader, whether it's a specialist, it's a fractional engagement, fraction of a full-time job, and it brings so many benefits. The overhead and having to constantly pay that when you may not have work for them or they're creating low value work for themselves, it's not feasible for a growing company. Talk a little about the onboarding though. If someone, when you're onboarding and one of your staff members is onboarding a fractional copywriter to help with the book project that we helped with, or it's a designer, what advice would you give someone that's looking to onboard a fractional role?
Almost no one's going to listen to this advice. I fully comprehend that, but it's still my advice. If you go to motivationcode.com and you look at the top navigation, but you're going to see something that says who we serve. And when you click on who we serve, or if you see it pop up in the nav, it's going to have all these little segments that we serve. Every one of those pages is written. There's written copy that tells you exactly who we serve. Every segment is listed there. Then, if you go to the next one, how we help. And whether you click on how we help and you read the general page and then you have links to the others, or you just see the drop down, hiring employees, employee engagement, team leadership, cohesion, all these things, they're written. Every single one of how our stuff helps. Then you go to products. Every product is there. If you scroll to the bottom nav, under one of the tabs, it has webinars. There's 8 recorded webinars. If you go below that, our comparison against all our competitors is all sitting there. What's my onboarding advice? Write down everything. Write down who you are, how you got here, what you do, what all your products are, how they work, who you serve, how you help them, what problems you solve, how you line up with your competition. First and foremost, it brings clarity to the organization. Everybody gets on the same page. Hey, this is what we're doing. I thought we were doing, Read it all. Second of all, anything you're going to do with AI, it's really powerful because you're like, here, let me just give you this. Let me give you this. All of our outbound campaigns, we use strong AI to do this, and we can generate very custom, very specific, one-by-one outbound messaging because we have just a mountain of written information about who we are, what we do, how we help, all that kind of good stuff. But then when you're onboarding someone, whether they're a new employee or they're a fractional hire, you go, hey, I'm going to have you writing a book for this segment, solving this problem, using this product. And they go, you have it all written down already? And you're like, yeah, because what I don't want is for you to spend time going in the wrong direction. I don't want you to spend time making it up. Where we get the work product, we're like, what is this? You didn't tell me. So I just, like, the most powerful thing you can do. And now we certify coaches on our M-Code platform. And I was talking to one on Friday, and I said, I'm positive that nobody has read our website, like other than our employees, right? There's just too much there. No one's read it. And that was Friday. And then on Tuesday, he wrote me a note and he said, all done. I said, all done with what? And he said, I've read every page on your website. And he's like, holy moly, you've written everything. Like everything is there. And I'm like, every few days, I just read this. I will become a better certified player because I have everything I can ever need and want is already here. And I'm like, so we don't use our website just for the outside market, whatever. We use it as the knowledge base. It's a public one, but the knowledge base of everything we need so that we can onboard anyone in any space doing anything. They're going to be like, oh, thank God. Like I totally understand the context that I'm stepping into.
Yeah, just the act sometimes of taking the time to put it down there and look at all of the constituents you're serving by doing that one thing, your customers, your partners, your internal team, onboarding new folks. That's great, Chris. You mentioned AI. Give me maybe one use case of how you and your team are incorporating that right now.
Yeah. Okay. We have a little bit of code. We haven't launched this yet to the public, right? So you can't use it, but we can use it. We're cheating. And we can do it via a web interface, or we have an extension that plugs into your Gmail. And what it does is you write the email you want. So I go, hey, Brad, I'm looking forward to connecting on this podcast. Also, I want to tell you about JobFit for what Quickly Hire's doing because I think this could be awesome. That's my default way of communicating. And then I go, okay, hold on a second. And I have 8 little buttons on the top of my Gmail. And I just push each button. And what it does is it translates that message into that particular motivational dimension. So it shapes the language. It keeps the message the same, but it shapes the language, right? If you're a relator and you want to build the connective tissue, hey, I think we should talk, not I want to talk to you. I think we should talk about, or I think we should collaborate on how to put JobFit into Quickly Hire's hands, because then we could see, right? So it's going to look like that. If I'm hitting a driver, which is all about overcome obstacles, Brad, I want to understand what would stop Quickly Hire from using JobFit, because let's get together 10 minutes and have that conversation, right? It's going to be direct to the point. Relators are going to think it's rude. Drivers are going to be like, God, I love this message. We have this tool that allows us to change the message without changing the message, shaping the language so that other people consume it. Now, I have a coach of mine who has $1 million business, is his client, and the CEO is ignoring him. 3 weeks. 3 weeks, no response. He's writing him, he's texting him, he's emailing him. He's trying to get time to pitch doing his own consulting with the company. And he knows the CEO. This is not cold. 3 weeks, nothing goes by. So I show him this tool. I go, hey, tell me what you're saying. Let's put it in here. Okay, this guy, what is he? Okay, I click the button. It generates a new message. And we put it into his email and he sends it. 4 hours later, he gets a 3-word response. Boom, let's go.
Wow.
So he's like, oh my God. So he goes and writes the follow-up with the Stripe link for his own services, whatever, but it's his own writing again. Like you would have thought he learned, right? So own writing, and the CEO writes back. He's like, why would I do this? And why would I pay for it?
Oh.
And he calls me and he's like, what's happening? I'm like, adjust the text. He's like, oh, I forgot. So we take the thing, rewrite the message with the Stripe link, and it outputs something different, and he sends it to the guy. And the guy writes back, approved.
Wow.
He's like,
it's like magic.
This is magic. And you're like, no, it's just, we're wired to read and act on things that align with who we are. And we get these tiny little microaggression defensive responses when it doesn't line up the way we want. And so you go, so how are you doing that? We're doing it with AI. We take the message that comes in when I type it, we grab that, we pass it to an LLM, but the LLM is trained in all our dimensions and with all the language rules and everything else. And then it spits back the conversion, right? Translated text. In the same way that if you asked an AI engine to translate English to Spanish, it's the same kind of thing, except it's 8 dimensions of motivation. And then you hit send and off it goes. And we use AI in the context of serving the broader goal, which is to make messaging or campaigning. We did a sample. They weren't a client, but they were a marketing firm for a very large software platform that does sales enablement, right? Sales enablement is like when you have a serious sales team and you need to tell each member on the team what's the next artifact to send to each one of their different leads in their process. So they hit this milestone, send them this. They hit this milestone. But when they come to sending the case studies, it's one case study. It's just one. Most case studies are written for achievers and drivers. And so we took their case study and we generated 8 case studies, 8 versions for 8 different dimensions. And we sent it back. Half the marketing team was like, is this illegal? The other half was like, I don't care if it's legal or not. I need these and I need to use them right now. And you're like, yeah, because what we do as salespeople, we send out a case study, it doesn't hit, and then we're just like, that's the end. It didn't work. Whereas you're like, no, I think this guy's more here, so let me give him this one. And they're like, this is incredible. We need to do the same thing that you did for these guys. And you're like, yep, we figured out the alignment.
It reminds me of some of the personalization options, even on digital, that you've had websites and stuff, but you're able to do it really for everything, all communication and all collateral. Thanks, Chris. As we wind down here a little bit, I want to learn a little bit more about you. I know a lot about you, but I want our audience to hear a little bit. What does Chris Lema enjoy doing in his free time?
I smoke cigars, and I do them as a professional. Do not try this at home. Right? I smoke a lot of cigars and really good quality cigars. I have tried my hand at rolling cigars. I'm very bad at that, so I don't do that. But I like cigars. As I mentioned earlier, I coach. So outside of my day job, I coach CEOs and help them with their teams and help them with their growth and help them with their product launches and all that kind of good stuff. And then the nerdy part of me, I read a lot. I love reading, and whether it's books, or I have a new book that I haven't read before here called Framers. It's right here at my desk. And it's Human Advantage in an Age of Technology and Turmoil. And I'm like, Framers? I never heard of it. A buddy recommended it. I bought it. It got here yesterday. And I'm like, okay, time to read a new book. So that's about me.
Yeah, and you see you're wearing your Cal shirt today. I think that was that to taunt me because they're now in the ACC against my Carolina Tar Heels.
Yes, now we are competitors. But what I tell everybody is Cal isn't really a competitor in sports. That's not what our school was about. It's UC Berkeley. It's in Northern California. Cal is a great school. It continues to be one of the top ranked in the world as a public institution. It's always in the top 3. It's an incredible school. But it's where you bring all the nerds to hang out and study. So if we happen to build a basketball team for a year or a football team for a year, Jared Goff and Aaron Rodgers were both quarterbacks at Cal for a year. Jason Kidd was a basketball player for Cal for a year. But these are guys that I can name on one hand, not like real legacy programs at universities where you're like, I don't have enough fingers for all the well-known names that have played basketball here. So we don't even compete.
Well, lately I've felt that way about Carolina, though. Yeah, so we'll see.
It's going through a little bit of a rebirth, but hey, my Lakers, which is I grew up in Southern California, so my in the NBA, the Lakers had a 10-year drought.
Yeah.
And I had to live through 10 years of them really sucking. And then they won, but they won in the year that they were in the bubble. And then I thought, okay, this is it. Now we're going to get a string of 3-peat or even a 2-peat, just back to back something. And the offseason came and they got rid of half the team. And you're like, what are you doing? We're back into rebuilding all over again.
It's we're going to do it for the future. It's what about the now?
What about the now?
It's crazy. So
I've lived with a lot of rebuilding years.
Yeah. Chris, it's always a pleasure. I often say I learn something every time we talk, and this was no exception. Thanks for sharing this insight, information. M-Code Motivations.ai sounds like a phenomenal company. I encourage everyone to check it out. How can people reach you, Chris? What's the best way to get in touch?
I am on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. I'm in all those places. I'm Chris at motivationsai.com. I'm Chris at motivationcode.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Mr. Chris Lema. So I'm in a lot of places. I have a website, chrislema.com. So you can find me just about anywhere.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. I've enjoyed the conversation.
My pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Scaling Smart. If you're building a team and want to leverage fractional talent to accelerate your growth, visit quicklyhire.com to find pre-vetted professionals who can help you scale. Don't forget to subscribe for more founder insights on smart team building.